Hi, I'm Ruth Boyd, and today I'd like to talk to you about transformative learning theory. To get started, let's do an icebreaker. I would like you to cross your arms as if you're bored or waiting for someone. All right, now I'd like you to cross them the opposite direction. How did it feel when you were asked to cross your arms the other way? Did it come naturally, or did you have to stop and think about it? And were you comfortable with doing this different than you always do it? I don't know about for you, but for me, I realized that I always cross my arms the same way. And the guy that wrote this exercise did it to illustrate change. And he said that 90% of the people struggle with this activity. For some famous quotes, if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. And education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And so this is really, truly what we're talking about today is change. And we all come to adulthood with our own set of values and beliefs that were instilled into us as children, and we don't even really realize that we have them. And as new learning experiences come to us and new ideas, as long as they don't push the boundaries of our beliefs and our values, then we just kind of keep assimilating them and adding them to our lives, and it keeps just expanding our worldview. And life is great until we are faced with an earth-shaking dilemma or a really strong argument that does not fit into these values and beliefs. And then we have to stop, and we have to critically think, and we have to choose what we're going to do with these things that don't fit into our values and beliefs. And usually we have to reshape in order for them to fit into them. And so this can be very difficult and painful. And so today, through the handout, which I hope you got, through peer learning, through technology, and classroom discussion, we're going to unpack what the transformative learning theory is. And when we are done, you as adult learner should be able to understand and discuss what the transformative learning theory is, consider how you've experienced it in your own life, compare and contrast the strengths and weaknesses of this approach, and a question if this is a learning theory that you will value and consider using in your classroom. I would like to suggest that all of us that are working on our master's in a university setting are in an amazing time period of transformative learning. In fact, that's how it was first discovered. Jack Mesro in the 1970s was amazed when his wife Eddie went back to school as an adult learner, and she started changing many of her views and assumptions as she came up against difficult material or things that didn't fit into her current worldview. And Jack was pretty astounded by this, and he began to study many other women that were returning back to school. He said when people go back to school, they are inviting an invitation to transform. This theory has since been researched by many, many people. Because teachers understand that transformative theory learning is truly one of the deepest kind of learnings. And at this point, I'm going to show you a video on it. So here we go.
Education that radically changes the way people think and the way people feel, then it's worth exploring transformative learning theory. It was developed to help educators understand the nature of really significant and powerful learning that changes the learner in profound and long-lasting ways. It was originally formulated by Professor Jack Mezirow in 1975, based on research that he did with women returners in an educational program in the US. It's since been developed and challenged by many others, and it is important to remember this. But in this introductory scribe, we're just going to consider a very simple overview of his initial starting ideas. Everyone has a set of meaning perspectives that they develop as a result of their upbringing and experiences. these are taken for granted ways of seeing ourselves and the world. We're rarely fully conscious of them, and we tend to think that they simply represent the way things are. When people encounter new knowledge, they filter this through those meaning perspectives, and they add this new knowledge to their existing way of seeing the world. Much of the learning we experience takes place like this. It doesn't transform our way of looking at the world, it just builds on it. It adds to what Mezirow called our existing meaning schemes, the subsets of beliefs that are shaped by those larger meaning perspectives. Mezirow categorised the meaning perspectives through which we filter new learning in three ways: personal or psychological, sociolinguistic or epistemic. Personal or psychological meaning perspectives are beliefs about ourselves and the kind of things we can do. So, I'm not the kind of person who can do this, or it would be wrong of me to do that. Sociocultural or sociolinguistic meaning perspectives are what we believe about the world, society, and the way it's organised. For example, our beliefs about class, race, gender, economics. And epistemic meaning perspectives are what we believe about what knowledge is and the way it's made. For example, we might believe that knowledge is objective and absolute, and we can always know what the right answer is. Transformative learning happens when we encounter new knowledge or have new experiences that won't fit into our existing meaning perspectives. Mezirow labelled these disorienting dilemmas. They can shake our sense of ourselves, our understanding of the world, or our certainties about knowledge. In order to be able to manage these new ideas and experiences, we have to reformulate our meaning perspectives. We have to make them more inclusive. We have to change our assumptions and reshape those underlying beliefs. And this can be painful because it involves letting go of some dearly held beliefs, and it can be difficult, requiring lots of thought and critical reflection.
All right, so that in essence was that video, which I thought was so well done. For myself, just practically speaking, I have to think of skills that I have learned that caused a disorientating dilemma. Consider driving stick shift after driving automatic for many years. It didn't make sense at first. But in time, I learned to overcome the stalls, the multitasking, the driving up a steep hill, and then having to stop and go again. It took critical reflecting, and it took having to reorganize how I thought and feel about driving. Fast forward many years to when I moved to Indonesia and now into Lebanon. Both countries, crazy, insane driving with almost no police and almost no rules. And I was forced with a disorientating dilemma. Either A, stay home and be completely dependent on my husband to take me places, or get out there and be brave and learn to drive and face something that was really difficult to do. And I'm proud to say both times I have done it. So it's not to say that I still question my sanity doing it. Take this to nursing. I think of freshman year and trying to learn to take a blood pressure, just putting on the cuff and listening for that first beat and the last beat, and I didn't even always hear a beat, and it just seems so awkward and so hard. And yet again, fast forward many years later, and I don't even think twice about taking a blood pressure anymore, but I do think about it when teaching a new student. And now here we are in graduate school. But I really think this is more, though, true transformative learning. And I think like a few semesters ago when I was in ethics class, and I don't like ethics, but I went into that class thinking that it would be okay to lie to save a Jew. And by the time I left that class, I realized that no, I didn't need to lie to save a Jew, that God would provide another alternative if I was willing to take it. And I think this is very radical transformative learning. And you guys, through discussing and questioning, help transform me too. And even last semester when we had to write a syllabus, oh my goodness, that transformed me. I had no idea how much work went into all those classes I've taken in my life. And I have unresolved thinking in my life that is waiting for transformation. Here in Lebanon, in the last 6 months, I have seen more poverty than fits into my worldviews and my values and beliefs. 2 weeks ago, I saw a barefooted lady in the cold, older than my mother and mother in law, so I'm guessing in her 70s, carrying her son, who was probably in her 50s, on her back, begging for money. This does not fit into anything that I know what to do with. And so I will need to stop and critically process what to do with the extreme poverty that I see here. And truly, when this happens, this is when the deepest kind of learning takes place. Now, this is the greatest strength of this theory, is this critical, deep learning, but it is also its greatest weakness. Because can you force a learner to have aha moment? And how do you create these kind of disorientating dilemmas in the classroom? Mezirow himself admits that true transformative learning is rare. But this one thing we do know, we need it to have a safe place in order for it to happen. I'm going to show you parts of two other videos. Two parts of one video. And it begins with the story of a guy that when he was 16 years old was sent to a concentration camp. And it's so powerful, and I wish I could show it all to you, but we don't have time.
In the other direction, so whichever way you slept, you always had a pair of feet in your face. The man next to me was an extremely nice gentleman, and he introduced himself as Mr. Herbert Levine. Mr. Levine was kind and polite to me. One day when I came back from a work assignment, I climbed up. I was at the top level of the three-tier bunk, and there was Mr. Levine with a deck of cards. And he was shuffling these cards. And I couldn't understand it, Having a deck of cards in Auschwitz was like finding a gorilla in your bathroom. What is he doing there, And then Mr. Levine turned to me and offered me a card and offered me the deck and said, pick a card. So I picked a card and he performed a card trick for me. He performed a miracle. And I've never seen a card trick before, and the man who performed it was sitting right there. And then Mr. Levine did the unthinkable. He actually explained the trick to me. And the words got burnt into my brain. And I remembered every single word. And from that day on, I practiced that trick every day. Although I didn't have any cards. I just kept on practicing. About 3 weeks later, the entire camp, with the exception of a couple of hundred of us, were sent to the gas chambers.
Okay, so his story goes on, and finally he gets to America, gets married, works, has a life, then he retires, and now this is what he did for the last 25 years in his retirement.
I never met him again. But the trick that he showed me stayed with me and enabled me to go around schools and try to make this world just a little bit better. So if you ever know somebody who needs help, if you know somebody who is scared, be kind to them. Give them advice, give them a hug, teach them a card trick. Whatever you're going to do, it's going to be hope for them. And if you do it at the right time, it will enter their heart, and it will be with them wherever they go forever. Thank you.
And so I guess I would like to end with that, and that is what my goal is as a teacher, that I and you will install beautiful truths into our students' hearts, and it will be true transformative learning. Thank you so much for listening, and it's a joy to journey with you.